What's going on, guys? Stevie from the Minute Masters here, and today I'm going to show you how to replace a worn out water pump. So welcome everybody to the Minute Masters. I am now shooting here from West Des Moines in Iowa, and it is cold. So moved out here recently, and on the drive my water pump failed and it just started dripping coolant. So yesterday ran out, bought one of these, just a Duralast thing just to replace it. But one thing you should know, if your water pump fails, a lot of times it's from one of the seals or bearings on the inside there behind this wheel, and it will sometimes leak from one of these wheat poles here. So of course this one right here on the underside was just pouring out coolant. So anyway, we're gonna replace it. So there's a water pump. And then it comes with a plate, okay? And then it also comes with that gasket there. And then there is this gasket, which is, I believe, from the plate to the block, okay? And it even has like little directions there for you. Now, in addition to that, I'm a big Felt Pro fan, so I grabbed a Felt Pro gasket that I had on hand as well, so I don't have to use one of those, okay? So now, pulling it apart. So water pump being right here, right there, a lot of stuff has to get pulled. So we're gonna start with trying to make some room here. So this upper radiator hose, which is completely empty, okay? I'm gonna pull that out. As you can see, it's above where the water pump is, but it's right here in my workspace, okay? So I'm gonna take that out. The next thing is this fan here. Okay, so you want to take your radiator fan off, and it's those 4 bolts right there. Now, the best way to do that is use 2 wrenches, one on one bolt, one on the other, and basically you use them against each other to kind of loosen them. If that method doesn't work, I usually take a pair of large channel lock pliers or water pump pliers, and I will grip right here, and that will allow me to then go and turn one of these bolts. It's a little easier to do this when the belt is all hooked up, because it gives the tension on there and you have something to pull against. So definitely leave your belt on. Once we get that out, then we're going to go for the fan shroud. Your fan shroud is normally held in by a bolt here and here, and it normally clips in somewhere on the bottom. Okay, and of course one of mine broke, so I have a zip tie holding it there. And right there, as you can see, once the fan's out, the shroud's out, and this upper radiator hose is removed, we're gonna have a lot of workspace. So I'm gonna pull those out and I'll bring you right back. So a real quick tip with getting your radiator fan off. You'll notice the fan blades aren't spaced evenly. There's a gap there. These 3 are close together, and then there's a gap here. That's so, I'll give you a little background. So that's so that you can get your hand in between here and work. Like this is a little tough to get your hand in there, but that will. So when you're working on the backside like this, you'll just turn the fan so you get a bigger gap here, and then you get your hand in there and wrench away. And if you didn't catch it earlier, just trying to do this one. This is where I'd take my wrench and I'd grab it right there, okay? And then I would use a regular spanner wrench to get at the bolts. I'd loosen with the open side, and I would take them out with the ratcheting side. And that's the easiest way to get this fan off. So, all right, we get back to it. All right, as you can see, a lot more workspace in here, okay? That's what we want. And here's a little thing I started doing. So just so you can keep the order right, there is your upper radiator hose, fan, the shroud, like I said, 2 bolts at the top, just unclips from the bottom. So the next part to take off is your belt, okay? Now, I replaced my radiator support, so I don't have the sticker here that tells me the orientation of the belt. I can probably do it from memory, but who wants to take chances? So I made a little drawing here. Yep, not the best, but it will help get the belt back. So I'm gonna have that up there. So at this point, what you'll do is you'll need to take some tension off the tensioner. So what you'll basically want to do is pull it in that direction, and it will loosen the belt, and then we can actually take the belt off. Now, of course, you can pull like an old trick, and you just like pull it off one of the pulleys like sideways. I don't recommend that just because you're putting a weird tension on the belt, and sometimes the grooves and the pulleys and whatnot. So all you have to do, pull over. Matter of fact, let me see if I can kind of get it here with my electric ratchet, my trusty Milwaukee electric ratchet. There we go. So you can see the tension's out, and there we go. And the tensioner pull, you'll see, will actually go over a little more, and then we can take the belt off. Okay, now you can see already it's good to have that diagram, or else you'll get lost. So once the belt is off, this piece here will come right off, all right? And there is your water pump becoming more exposed by the part, okay? So like I said, keeping the order right, put that over there. I even have the bolts holding on there in the little tray. Highly recommend you get some of these because you don't want to lose any bolts. Okay, so the next phase here is we got to clear some of this out here, because as you can see, there's a couple of through bolts. So there's one through bolt right here, and that holds the back side right there. You can see that. That one holds this very side of the water pump. So you want to pull that off, which means you're going to have to undo this assembly. So without having to disconnect your air conditioner and your power steering, you're just going to take this bolt out here, that bolt, and that bolt. It's just 3 bolts. You're going to slide this whole assembly forward and then just kind of lay it right over there. And then it's out of the way enough for us to get at this. Okay? And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on disconnecting these other hoses. Okay? So there's the lower radiator mount clamp right there. There's this guy right here, which I believe is a heat. And then, of course, there's this other kind of like coolant bypass. Now, a little trick, I have a big set of linesman's pliers. And those, so far, are the best for trying to get these, because you just can kind of expand them. You can grab them. And I've tried using other types, and these work the best. So, I'm going to remove this assembly here, push it off to the side. I'm going to undo that clamp, and that clamp, and I'll bring you back for the unbolting process. All right, guys, here we are. The water pump is off. Now, a couple things. I ended up unbolting the water pump and then pulling off the hoses. I mean, the hoses, if you've ever had to take them off, they get like kind of stuck on there. So it was actually just easier for me to just wrangle with the thing when it was kind of hanging there. For the bolts, just so you can keep them straight, I put the water pump here, the new one, over the cardboard, and I reached through with a long marker and I marked out where the holes were and punched them through, because they all look about the same here, but they're all different sizes. So instead of having to mess around and figure out what's what, just mark them. So we have that together there. The next task at hand is to clean the face of this, okay? Now, if you've been watching my channel, you remember I replaced all the gaskets here earlier. That's why there's some nice new Felpro gaskets right there. So it should come very clean, but you're going to want to clean that off. And then we are ready to get the water pump back on there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean this up. Side note, you may want a drip pan. I kind of made a mess, since moving. I don't have one. So believe it or not, the snow shovel kind of worked out in catching all of the coolant that fell. Wasn't the most effective, but it did the job. So I'm going to clean this up and I'll bring you back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have the face of the timing cover clean, okay? And I used a flat razor, and I also used a little bit of a utility knife, but I also cheated a little bit. I used a paint stripping wheel on my Milwaukee grinder here. Just touch it, bzz, cleaned up nice. So now we have to configure our pump. So if you buy your pump, here's your pump. That's the back side. And it should come with a gasket. Now I have bought this optional Felpro gasket. It does come with the regular kind of plastic jobby right here. And then you get a plate. It should come with 2 nuts that hold the plates to the pump. And then of course you'll have your block plate to block gasket, which is that guy right there. Now, before you just go and bolt this thing on, you will need to use some sealer, some RTV. So I have some blue RTV being warmed up by the heater over here because it is 16 degrees out. And what the directions say is put a nice thin film of it all the way around your pump. Now, where it is critical that you have this sealer is anywhere where there's gasket material, but pay special attention for around bolt holes. Sometimes if you leave a little bit of gap, that's enough for the fluid to get through, and you'll just have a little seepage through each one of your bolt holes, okay? So keep an eye on that. Now, this plate is new. If you look at an old plate, it has some valleys built into it. So you'll see one right there, okay? And you'll see them a couple around the edges. You definitely want to fill those if you're using an old plate, okay? The new plate does not have those valleys, so you may not have that issue. I think there was also one of these tabs that was bent on my old plate. So definitely use the blue RTV to make sure you have a proper seal, or else you will spring the tiniest of leaks, and that's very annoying considering a lot of work it takes to get to this point. So I'm gonna get that all together, and then it's time to bolt it to the block here. I'll get those torque specs to you when it comes time to bolt that on. All right, so I've taken the liberty of mounting the water pump. There's no real secret sauce to doing this. Just get it on there and try not to get yourself too sticky with the RTV. Please excuse some of the mess. It's the 16-degree weather really makes this kind of interesting to do, and gloves and everything. So I just put all the bolts in, again, using the pattern I made on the cardboard, and I just ratchet them down, and there's no real torque on the thing. So I have my torque wrench set up to 15 pounds of torque. According to the Haynes manual, you can do between 12 and 21. I like to go somewhere in the middle. I know 15 isn't exactly in the middle, but I like to go somewhere in the middle only because it is an old block. Some of the bolts, the threads are kind of rusty. What I'm saying is I don't trust it not to strip any of the old threads. And the RTV and just a decent tightness on the bolts, and this thing will stay, okay? So that's how I get around old engine and, you know, not be able to crank the torque on these things. So I'm just going to go around, bump, 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 hit them all. And then I'm going to move this clamp on here. I'll reposition that clamp on the hose here. I'll reconnect the lower radiator hose. And literally, it's just the reverse of the install. So I'm going to get started here, and I'll bring you back when I'm all finished. So here we are, guys, the finished product. There is our bright, shiny new water pump. Man, I love new parts. And I've got two of them side by side. It's great. So from here on out, you're going to want to fill your coolant. It's not as simple as just putting more in and it fills up. There will be air trapped in the system, and if you don't get it out, you'll have weird overheating problems and things like that. So what you're going to do, I'll give you the kind of the quick primer, but you'll probably want to research this yourself. But you'll fill with coolant, and then it will get, you know, look like it's topped off. You'll go and you'll start your truck, and what that's going to do is going to start circulating the coolant, and it's actually going to push all the air out, and it's going to bubble the air out through the system here. You shouldn't have anything overflowing, and you only do it for a few minutes. You don't want to do it while the engine's hot or anything. But once you see the level go down, you can add some more. Matter of fact, you can turn the truck off, add some more, turn it back on. You keep doing that until the level stays consistent. Okay, and remember, only a few minutes on to circulate, get the air out. You're not trying to warm this thing back up to 100 degrees or so, or then you will have just pressure building up and pushing all the fluid out. Okay, so that's it for me, guys. I'm actually going to go add the fluid in here, burp it, and then I'm going to go take this thing for a little drive around town and make sure we're all good. Okay. If you have any leaks, unfortunately, you have to go back, take everything off. So this is kind of the moment of truth. But trust me, if you use the gaskets and the RTV, you should be good. So that's all for me, guys. Hit the subscribe icon over here. Check out some of my other videos. I'm Stevie from the Minute Masters. Thanks for watching.